All right, diving in. Today, we're looking at something I think is really interesting. Not just paddling, but the whole lifestyle around it. We've got some great stuff from you guys. Articles, stories, and I got to say, this is way more than just a sport.
You hit it right on the head.
Yeah,
It is what really struck me going through everything is how it's presented. Paddling, it's like this doorway to seeing the world differently.
like a whole different perspective.
Totally. Adventure, sure, but also this self-reliance, and a communal, a really vibrant one. Plus, a creativity you just don't get elsewhere, all inspired by being out in nature.
Okay, lots to unpack there. One thing that jumped out at me, paddle camping. I mean, trips for days. Your kayak is your home. That's hardcore.
Oh, yeah.
But honestly, packing everything into a kayak, that's intimidating.
Right. Well, the stuff we've got actually addresses that head on.
Good.
Really emphasizes bringing only what you absolutely need. There's even this one packing list from a seasoned paddle camper, 5-day trip, all fit into one small dry bag.
5 days, I got to see this list.
It's impressive.
The sources also mention, like, campsite selection. That's super important. Why is that?
Think about it. You're out there, on the water, maybe miles from anything, getting to a site that's taken, or worse, dangerous, that ruins the trip. So the sources, they stress. Research beforehand, permits, water access, weather, everything. Some even suggest satellite imagery to scout spots.
That's next level planning. But food. Am I just eating energy bars for a week?
No way! There's a whole section on cooking outdoors, specifically for paddlers. Mouthwatering stuff, themes like freshwater fish feasts, campfire desserts.
Hold on. Fish feasts. We're not talking just catch it, throw it on the fire, are we?
Not even close. Tips from actual chefs, ones who specialize in wilderness cooking. They get into portable stoves, cast iron, even smoking fish right there at your site.
Now that's what I'm talking about. Gourmet meals in the
Yeah.
middle of nowhere.
Mm.
Paddle camping just got a whole lot more appealing.
It's resourcefulness and adapting. Speaking of, there's a DIY section too for paddlers. Thought that was cool.
Yeah, saw that. Rod holders on kayaks, custom paddle grips, waterproof storage. My DIY brain was buzzing. But how realistic is this for, someone who's not a master craftsman?
Well, the sources break it down really well, step by step, materials lists, even tool suggestions. Big emphasis on safety too, doing it right with good materials.
So it's not just slapping it together, huh? I liked how they emphasize sharing what you make, posting pics, videos, even trading tips.
That's paddling for you. It's got this huge community aspect, and not just online. The sources highlight clubs, meetups, group trips. It's all about connecting.
It's like finding your tribe, but instead of a campfire, it's a river, right?
Exactly. And the sources go deeper into that, the spirit of it all, the knowledge sharing, even some friendly competition. There's this interview with a paddler, met their best friend through a kayak club. Now they do trips together every year.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
There's also the whole protecting the waterways thing, right? Making this lifestyle possible in the first place. What'd you think of their approach to that?
Impressed, honestly. They go beyond the basic leave no trace. There's tons of DIY ideas for reusable gear, repurposing old stuff, even making your own eco-friendly cleaners for your kayak.
Nice. Tying that DIY spirit right into being responsible. I love the idea of giving old gear a new life. One paddler, they even collect those discarded plastic bottles, turn them into usable gear.
Really ingenious. The sources also talk about paddling all year round, encouraging folks to get out there, even when it's cold.
Winter paddling, honestly, a bit intimidating.
I hear you.
But they did mention gear and safety. What's that about?
Right. Layering clothes, dry suits, understanding cold water, it's all in there. Even winter kayak mods, spray skirts, insulated seats to stay warm.
Okay, maybe not so bad then. I'm seeing now this whole paddler's lifestyle. It's a whole world of stuff.
It really is. And we haven't even touched on the artistic side yet. The sources go deep on that. But let's save that for next time. How paddling gets people creative in all sorts of ways. All right, so this connection between paddling and getting creative.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. The sources mentioned like art, photography, even music. But how does being out on the water, how's that spark creativity?
Well, just think about the environment. That stillness, a misty morning, the light on the water, sunsets. It just hits you, you
Yeah,
know?
I can see that.
It begs to be interpreted artistically.
Yeah. And even the paddling itself, the motion, that could be like a meditation almost, right?
That's it. One of the sources, there's this interview with a painter, landscapes. She says paddling clears her head, gets her into this creative flow. That feeling of being totally immersed in nature, that's what she puts onto the canvas.
I love that. It's not just painting though, right? There was photography too. People getting amazing shots of wildlife landscapes, all while paddling.
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole thing, kayak photography, using the kayak as a steady platform.
Hmm,
Getting up close to things, they talked about waterproof cases, special lenses to get those unique angles right from the water.
that's wild. And then there's music. How does that influence music?
One source had this folk musician. His songs, they come from the sounds he hears while paddling, the water lapping, birds, rustling leaves. It all gets woven in.
That's so cool how it sparks so many different creative things.
Yeah.
And speaking of connections, the sources also talked about community in the paddling world.
Yeah, it goes way beyond those online forums, sharing DIY stuff. It's about clubs, organized trips, that real-life connection.
Right. One story stood out. This group, they met through a club, ended up doing this multi-day trip down a remote river, cooking together, handling rapids, making friends along the way.
That's it. Shared experiences out there, it builds a bond like nothing else. And the sources also pointed out these clubs, they often do a lot for the environment too.
The cleanups they organize, right?
Exactly. Interviewed one club leader. They do regular cleanups, getting trash out of rivers and lakes. It's great to see, protecting the places they love.
Yeah, that's really walking the walk, not just talking about sustainable paddling. It's a group effort. And speaking of responsibility, we were talking about paddling year-round. Is there anything specific to keep in mind, safety-wise, when it's cold?
Absolutely. The sources are big on that.
Hmm.
Dressing right for the conditions. There's even a guide on layering clothes, what kind of base layers, insulation, waterproof shells, the whole 9 yards.
So lots to think about. What about gear changes for cold weather?
They have a whole section on that. Spray skirts to keep water out of your kayak, insulated cushions for warmth. Even these things called pogies, like mittens attached to your paddle, keeps your hands warm and dry.
Togies, huh? Never heard of those. So with the right prep and gear, winter paddling could be fun.
Definitely.
What else did they say about cold weather paddling?
Weather forecasts, obviously, knowing what you're getting into. Ice flows, hypothermia, they talk about the risks. Even suggest taking a safety course specifically for cold water, learning rescue stuff.
Makes sense. Safety first, always. It's amazing, this whole paddler's lifestyle. It's way more than just being on the water. Nature, connecting with people, even with yourself, through creativity and protecting the environment.
Totally. It's a whole way of life, and the sources made it clear the people in this community, they're passionate about it. We've covered a ton, but before we wrap up, let's think about what we've learned. What does it mean for you, the listener? We'll be back in a bit with some final thoughts.
All right, back for the last part of our deep dive. It's been a really interesting look at this whole paddler's lifestyle, from the how-tos of camping to the creative side of it. So much to cover.
Yeah, it's kind of blown me away how paddling, it's not just one thing. It touches on so many parts of life. How we see nature, how we connect, even how we express ourselves.
Thinking back on everything, one word keeps popping up for me: connection.
I see that too. To nature, to other people, to that sense of adventure inside us.
The sources, they're full of stories about this. Paddlers finding peace out in nature, artists turning that into amazing art, communities working together to keep the waterways clean. It's all connected.
And those connections, they get stronger through doing stuff together, right? Running rapids as a group, building something, even just sitting around a fire sharing stories.
It makes you realize paddling, it's not just a hobby. It's a way of life. It gives you a sense of belonging, a purpose.
And it's a lifestyle that's open to anyone, no matter how old you are, how skilled you are. The
Yeah,
sources made that clear.
yeah, they did. Even had tips for beginners. Picking the right kayak, finding groups, taking lessons.
And that whole respect for the environment thing. Leave no trace, making sure those waterways stay beautiful.
So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this. What kind of connection will you make with this paddling world?
Will you go all in on paddle camping? Explore that creative side, photography, music, whatever calls to you. Join a club, meet people, maybe even become an advocate for keeping things sustainable.
So many options. And the
Yeah.
community is really welcoming. Take that first step. Reach out, explore, see what this lifestyle could do for you.
And remember, it's not about the destination, right? It's the journey, who you meet along the way, what you create.
Happy paddling, everyone.